Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Golden V podcast. My friend Bill Pearch returns. Bill has joined us a couple of times, but we are back to talk about today, which is Sabr Day, the Society for American Baseball Researches. If you don't know what the Sabr acronym is, and we're going to talk about Sabr Day and Sabr as the organization. But one of the things I want to do before we really get into the meat of the conversation is to give some chapter shout outs to our chapters. And for those of you that don't know how Sabr works, and you can explain this a little bit, Bill, we're going to talk about some of the chapters that are out there and the way the chapter system works within Sabr. I'm part of the Pacific Northwest chapter. When I joined a couple of years ago as a paying member of Sabr, I picked the chapter closest to me in the Pacific Northwest where I live. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, but the Sabr chapter, I believe, that I joined covers the province of British Columbia, the province of Alberta, the U.S. states of Washington State and Oregon. And so I want to take a moment to shout out my chapter, and I actually have two chapters to shout out because there's another chapter that I have never actually met the people in person, but I join their meetings every week, and that is Bruce McClure's Clyde Sukeforth chapter in New Hampshire. So those are my two chapters. Let's welcome in Bill Pearch. Bill, why don't you start by mentioning the chapters that you are a part of?
Sure. I'm glad to be back again, and happy Sabr Day 2025. I'm a member of the Chicago chapter, Emil Roth chapter, live in the western suburbs, so that's my primary chapter. So I'd love to send a shout out to them. We had our joint Sabr Day meeting with the Milwaukee chapter, Sabr King Keltner, Badger State chapter. We met in Kenosha at the Brat Stop, had a great lunch. I'd also like to send a shout out, happy Sabr Day message to my friends down in Central Illinois. I had an opportunity to help found that organization. So they're doing a lot of great things, sort of the DMZ land between Cubs, Sox, and Cardinals fans. So happy Sabr Day to everybody in those chapters.
And one of the things we discussed just before we started, we were talking a little about the chapter meeting you attended today, and the subject came to the unfortunate discussion about the 2024 Chicago White Sox, who, as you told me, and I knew they lost a lot of games, I didn't realize it was 121 games, thereby nabbing the 1962 Mets record. Is that correct?
They certainly did. Yeah. A specific shout out to Chicago chapter member Scott Lindholm, who really did a nice data deep dive into how it all fell apart. But really, yeah, they ended up losing 121 games, and the 62 Mets, they got them by a game, and it seemed like they were gonna really shatter that record, but they kind of hit a little winning streak at the end of the year. So the final number was 121 losses, and the funny thing on local radio is, do you realize the Sox could win 20 more games next year, well, this season in 2025, and still lose 100 games? So a lot of excitement on how that might actually shake out in this next season.
I wonder if anybody's going to make an updated version of the movie Major League, for those who haven't seen it. And I would think the majority of the folks, if not all the folks tuning in who are Sabr members, remember the start of the first Major League movie, the Cleveland Indians, obviously, how bad that team was in that movie. And I'm trying to remember how much it actually references how bad the Cleveland Indians were at that time. They're now the Cleveland Guardians. But just, it sounds like a similar exercise in futility for those teams. But let's keep moving here because there's some important stuff to discuss. And one of the things I was doing, cruising through some Sabr newsletters, and I just must mention before I keep moving that I've dropped a link to the Golden V podcast Buzzsprout page where I have all my episodes. Please take a cruise through there, and I'll share a few too. But there's a lot of baseball content in there, specifically focused on where I live in Vancouver, Canada, and the Vancouver Canadians related episodes of the podcast. But please go ahead, Bill, because we're going to talk a little bit about something I just learned about, which is this local grants project, which has now been extended.
Yes, Sabr grants. So I believe this is the third year that Sabr has awarded local grants to chapters. And in 2025, Sabr, the national organization, will be granting, what was it, the total amount? I had it right here, $10,000 in local grants. Now, there are four different pillars. There's the research pillar, scholarship pillar, preservation pillar, and the future of the game pillar. So there are a few different ways that you can apply for grants. There's a simple Google form to fill out. And this would be a great way. I know the very first episode I was on with you, we were talking about the Sabr landmarks map. Is there a particular
I was going to bring that up later and share
could,
that in the chat.
Yeah,
keep going.
Exactly,
keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would be a great opportunity if there was a particular location that you'd like to install a marker that recognizes some historic, significant baseball location. Is there something where it could contribute to launching a chapter's website? We're throwing some shout outs to chapters. Is there a way that you could fund a scholarship or provide for money to get to a program to help people that are interested in baseball? So there's a lot of different ways, but yes, the deadline was extended to February 14th. So if your chapter is interested in it, please go to the website, see how your chapter might fit. There's a little bit of homework you need to do, but it'll be an incredible, rewarding experience, which your chapter can get recognized by this particular program. It's a great way to get money into the hands of local chapters.
Yeah, and I just actually shared the link, sabr.org/local-grants. Let's keep our things moving here. Next up, I'm going to share the next link. Obviously, you've got the Sabr 52 chapter name tag there with you, which is last year's Sabr convention. One of the big things that's coming up this June in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is the Sabr 53 convention.
Exactly. Yeah, this is Sabr's signature flagship event, the annual convention. I've had a blast. I've been to 3 in person. This will be number 4. The first one I attended was in Baltimore. Chicago, we hosted Sabr 51 2 years ago, last year in Minneapolis. So Sabr 53 will be in Dallas-Fort Worth this year. Now, if you've looked at the dates, this one's going to be a little bit earlier, so it's coming up a little bit faster at the end of June 25th through the 29th. So we'll be in Dallas. Registration just opened this past Tuesday. Full disclosure, the minute the email went out, I signed up. I'm going. I'm looking forward to really getting that opportunity of connecting in person with people that have the same baseball passions and interests that I do. And you really get to take those deep dives into research discussions, look at the posters that they put together, attend a game. And one thing in particular I'm particularly excited about is we always go to a major league game at every one of these conventions. So this year we'll be able to get to the new Rangers Stadium. And why I'm particularly excited about it is we did have tickets to go in April of 2020 when that ballpark first opened. And obviously something significant happened that kept baseball away. So I've been fascinated to get there. But again, this is the largest event Sabr hosts every year. And early bird registration is open right now. So if you want to get in a little bit cheaper, I believe the early bird deadline is April 25th. Then the price goes up a little bit. So if you've ever been thinking about becoming a member, this would be a great way to really immerse yourself in a multi-day baseball experience.
I don't believe I have the membership current requirements and actual costs in front of me. I was looking back at my Sabr folder in my email for my business with Able Marketing. I haven't even chewed through those. Sometimes I get so many Sabr emails, I save them in a folder. But there was something in here about memberships. I'm trying to remember what my renewal rate was.
Okay.
But while I look for that, let's keep moving. And I'm also going to share something in the chat. People can see on the right-hand side there with all these links about when spring training starts, which is Thursday, February 20th, less than 3 weeks away now. The Los Angeles Dodgers will host the Chicago Cubs, the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, in Glendale, Arizona, to open the Cactus League season. So I'm imagining those games are probably going to be on TV. I know the Blue Jays game, will be on Sportsnet probably that weekend.
Yeah.
For those of us that are in Canada. But yeah, let's keep chugging here because I was trying to find the membership stuff and I couldn't.
Okay.
And I've shared the stuff on obviously on Sabr 53, some really recognizable names here for those who are going to, for those who attend and for those who interested in some of the speakers as the highlights. Obviously, Bruce Bochy, the Texas Rangers and 4-time World Series champion manager who helped the Rangers win the World Series in 2023. Obviously, the winner of, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 3 titles with the San Francisco Giants 2010, 2012, 2014, if memory serves. And then obviously Ivan Punch Rodriguez, the Texas Rangers catcher, amongst other things, 2017 Baseball Hall of Fame inductee. He's going to be there. Those two names I recognize. The other several I don't. Obviously James Beckett, the founder of Beckett Media, but Jack Hill, Rob Matwick, Tom Schieffer, Chris Young. Chris Young, the Texas Rangers president of baseball operations. Tom Schieffer, the former Texas Rangers president. Rob Matwick, executive vice president, public affairs, Texas Rangers. Jack Hill, as we mentioned, former senior vice president, project development, Texas Rangers. There's obviously going to be a lot more speakers announced. One of the things that made me chuckle too here is it says that the most affordable convention hotel rates in years at the Westin DFW airport is 3 miles away from the international airport. Shuttle Globe Life Field, obviously where the Texas Rangers play that you mentioned, that opened in 2020. Obviously didn't happen with the 2020 season, but that is the ballpark, as I recall, that hosted the 2020 World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays. So that was its first breaking in before Rangers fans actually got to that ballpark. Just cruising through a couple other things here, but I did pull out some other stuff I wanted you to comment on. You mentioned the early bird rates, 285 before April 25th. Non-members, 335 before April 25th. There's also some other cool stuff here for people. The Frisco Rough Riders game on June 26th. Frisco Rough Riders and the Tulsa Drillos Los Angeles Dodgers AA affiliate. And that's an interesting one. Cost $45. Globe Life Field ballpark tour during Sabr 53. And there was a Rangers Mariners game. There you go. On the 27th of June. Hotel $169 a night. What else we got here? Some other stuff to drop in the chat that maybe you can comment on. Because I know you've done some Sabr bios as well, but the Sabr research presentations are also a big part of this conference. What do you know about those, or have you ever done any of those?
I have not personally presented, but I've joined, listened in to several of them. And then what's fascinating about that is there are a couple of different ways you can go, and there's usually an extremely local spin on that. There might be a player who grew up there. There might be a little deep dive into a team, an independent league, but really overall, when the final completed schedule is published, there's so many ways to customize, and that's sort of the challenge that I've always run into is how do you get to all of these things that you'd like to participate in, because the topics range again from looking back at history, very timely issues. And especially if you look at the list that you had just discussed, I obviously have a former manager, former players, but then when you really start to talk to the executives and the team, that's where it really gets fascinating, because you can really start to talk deep dives into, obviously everybody associates Sabr with sabermetrics and analytics, and you really get that opportunity to speak with these individuals that are really looking at constructing a competitive team and how they work with data, how they construct their teams, how they focus on marketing, how they use the ballpark. So really, when this final schedule comes out, the way that you can customize your overall experience, even down to some of the details you mentioned, going to the Rangers game, there's a minor league game, you can get a tour. Keep your eyes on this particular page. It's going to keep changing as more details become locked in and moving forward. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually just shared in the chat too. I don't know if you've ever attended this event, the Sabr Analytics Conference, 14th to 16th, 2025.
I have not. Yeah, I have
Society
not
of Arizona State University. Okay. So there's I was actually just looking too, because one of the things I wanted to key on in this presentation, I'm trying to find it, was also the Negro Leagues conference, which I know Bruce McClure has mentioned a few times. Trying to find in my Sabr. Yeah. So that one, there's an email here from last January 31st. The Negro League ballpark figures, stories of the Negro Leagues, and the cover shot actually for this presentation was the first Sabr book that I ever received.
Okay.
From Rube to Robinson, which is a great publication about the Negro Leagues. Obviously, several Negro Leagues players in there, including the likes of Jackie Robinson, but there's so many other ones as well from that one. And that's when I first realized about the Negro Leagues. I'd heard some of the names, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, a few others, but I couldn't believe the depth in that book and the extensive nature of the Negro Leagues, the players playing in it, its extensive history, and then obviously with Jackie's entrance into the major leagues in 1947, but commemorated with Jackie Robinson Day now every year, and obviously his play first with the Monarchs in Montreal before he got to Brooklyn to play for the Dodgers. I couldn't believe the sort of history and the accuracy in that book, and just the quality and breadth of the stories being written, and the people that were there writing about it, reading about it, viewing it. But let's keep moving here with a few other little Sabr tidbits. Do you have anything else you want to throw out?
Well, I do. I mean, I think it's a perfect time when you mentioned From Rube to Robinson as a book specifically on the Negro Leagues. Go to Sabr's website. Go to the publications tab. One of the ideas that we've had is that the best kept secret with Sabr is its publication program. The research that goes into these books that come out. It's about 8 to 10 every year. And it's a wide range. I know you specifically were talking about Jackie Robinson. There are a number of books related to him. Roberto Clemente, their specific teams, their ballparks. So really, whatever your particular baseball passion is, there's a book that hits that target. And it is on demand. So if you go there, Sabr members, if you're a member, you can download a digital copy of any publication going back for free. Right. And if you're a member, you can actually get a hard copy for a reduced rate. So there's member, non-member. So we love to say that it's the best kept secret, but we're trying to make sure that that's not the case, that everybody knows about it, that it's certainly something that everybody can benefit from.
Yeah, I'm just actually sharing here. You can see, I don't know if you can see the overlay, but I can, when we do this chat with the Restream program that I use, you can see it here. And what's really important here too, I think, to members, you got to sign up for a Sabr membership to get in. But I frequently get these emails and I file them or I save them, but there's always books coming out, things needing to be reviewed, right? I mean, you shared with me the book on Shive Park, which I read about, obviously the history. For those who don't know, that the fact that the Oakland Athletics have moved again isn't really a surprise, because when the Oakland Athletics started, they were in Philadelphia before they went to Kansas City, Oakland, and now Sacramento. So I remember that book you shared with me. And there's so many books I have on my list to read. Yeah, this one, which popped up, my gift last year, which is on my night table I read in chapters, is the book on Ebbets Field, the famous field of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the history of Ebbets Field, the Nichibe Yakyu, the U.S. tours of Japan, I have to read. Another book I believe they pulled from Sabr, and some of the bio projects I've seen, like Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. That's probably where I first saw a Pittsburgh Pirates game on TV. They're playing in Three River Stadium. Obviously, this book that I reviewed for the IBWA newsletter, Not an Easy Tale to Tell, Jackie Robinson on the page, stage and screen, obviously edited by Bill Nolan, edited by Ralph Carhart, associate editors Bill Nolan, Carl Reichers, and Kate Natchman. And I reached out to Bill as well, Bill Nolan, that is, so we don't get confused about doing my first ever Sabr bio project piece of writing that I don't really have to do until the end of, I believe it's June or July, but I have to keep reminding myself that I have to do it. So I don't know if you can share as we get ready to wrap it up.
Sure.
Your experience with doing the Sabr bio project.
Sure. Yeah. I've written a few Sabr bios and a couple of game summaries as well. So the first one that I did was I went to high school in a fairly small town downstate in Illinois, and I found that going back to the early 20th century, there was a local individual that had political aspirations beyond his hometown, and he created a semi-pro baseball team to kind of shine a light on himself as he sort of shot after being the governor of Illinois. And I found that it turned out that particular community had a fascinating baseball history, and that just opened the doors to people who actually wound up on his team and ended up having major league careers, even if very briefly. So that really started me off on that. So I've written about him. I wrote the biography of Leo Mazzoni. There was a book specifically on the 1995 Atlanta Braves. It was the 25th anniversary, contributed to that. And I'm currently working on a bio of a player from just a small town, just a little bit south of where I went to high school. The player was Bud Clancy. And his claim to fame is one game in 1930. He played first base. He didn't record an assist. He didn't record a putout. Absolutely did nothing in the game, and it was the first time since in the 1800s that had happened. So he sort of became this baseball trivia, and it's just been fascinating to tell stories about individuals who played the game 4,000 words or less. So if there's a topic you're interested in, if there's a particular game in baseball history, there's a games project, which is fundamentally the same thing as the bio project, or the bio project itself, if there's an individual that you'd like to write about who's had just a touch of major league experience, we'd love to hear about you. So I absolutely encourage you to contribute to the overall baseball story through Sabr and its bio project.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I was talking to Bill Nolan about it. He's giving me all these suggestions about the things that I have to do in order to do the research. And I thought that was interesting too. Like, I think I said, would I use something like Wikipedia? And he said you could, but it's not really accurate. And what he actually said to me was that Sabr has more than 5,000 biographies already posted on its website. See what others have written and the sources have been drawn on that could be useful. And so he's got, that was back on Jan 10th. He sent me that.
And actually one of the really good benefits of becoming a Sabr member is you do get access to additional resources for research for free. And if I could do just a little bit of a shout out on that, if you can become a Sabr member, you get access to the paper of record, which that will give you the entire publication history of the Sporting News, which was based out of St. Louis. You'll get access to ProQuest, which focuses on black papers from that were all digitized. You get access to newspapers.com. And part of Sabr Day, what we were excited about with our Chicago-Milwaukee joint chapter is that there's an additional ProQuest US newspapers that go up to 2024 that is now active on Sabr's website under the Research Resources tab. So there'll be a formal announcement coming out this week. But if you go there right now, you'll get access to papers you did not have. So that opens the door to research. It will send you down crazy tangents. You will find little stories while you're researching, and it'll it's a fantastic resource and a benefit alone of being a Sabr member and contributing to the bio project.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff. I'm just looking at this. I'll share the website again too, because the newest book in the Sabr digital library is When the Minor League Baseball Almost Went Bust. 1946 to 1963. I'm wondering if this book was actually presented at the Clyde Sukforth chapter a little while ago. It looks very
It could be
familiar.
Yeah, it's been out for a few weeks. So
yeah, and while we share the screen again, I'll just get ready to wrap it up here. But Sabr members get this ebook for free. Ebook, paperback, $15.95. I think the one thing I found challenging was getting the ebooks and then having to try and read it on something other than having the book in my hand.
Right.
And having to take my computer or my phone, like iPad somewhere, carry around it, something like a screen so I could read the PDF. I think that was the only challenge I faced. I'm still old enough at 50 to remember or to realize that I don't need an electronic device to read a book, right? I can read it, book in hand. And I'll see if I can pull this up because, yes, here it is. This is the one I mentioned off the air, too.
Yeah.
Or actually mentioned on the air just a few minutes ago. This is the Ebbets Field book, which is obviously a fascinating book. I'm trying to chew through pieces of it.
Yeah, a quick little piece. I contributed 2 games stories to that particular publication about Eddie Matthews and a National League record for home runs. But one that actually that really hit me the other day when I was going home from work. I wrote the game summary of Tommy Brown being the teenager who debuted during World War II for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he debuted against the Cubs. The Cubs won the game, but what actually hit me was he just passed away a few weeks ago. And it was fascinating to see his name come up and know that I contributed to telling his story and how he broke into to baseball. That he was a Brooklyn teenager and he was playing for his hometown Dodgers and made an impact in the first day.
Yeah. All right, Bill. Thanks for doing this. Happy
Great,
Sabr Day,
absolutely.
everyone. Let's wrap it up there, and we'll talk to everyone soon.